All right, welcome to a new edition of the Daily Fantasy Flex, the PGA edition. It is late March, which means that we are almost to the Masters. We're here for the Shell Houston Open. As usual, I am joined by Colin, Davy, and Peter Jennings, a.k.a. CSU Ram. Colin, what's going on, man?
I don't know. I'm say goodbye to my favorite tournament of the year, the one where no one's ever heard of the players. Never play anyway.
Right.
Au revoir. Pete, I know it was a lot better for you than it was for me. 2 top 10s in the dog leg is pretty tough to beat. I'm sure you'll tell me all about what happened in match play because, like hell, I'm watching that. So I'll just consult my my TV recap over here. How's match play?
Match play was great, dude. It was actually an awesome week for golf. I wish I had a little more time to watch, but the times where I was home, I was able to turn on the match play if it was on, or the Puerto Rico Open, which was a good sweat. My boy Bryson DeChambeau also made a good showing. I shouldn't call him my boy. I sold low on DeChambeau. I had on the island of Bryson DeChambeau, I bought like one of the mansions at the top of the hill, you know? I was looking good. My real estate stock was going up, and then it was just like the '08 crash. And I panicked, and I sold out of DeChambeau, and now I'm trying to take credit after a good week. But I did have exposure to him, so at least I got a timeshare last
All
week.
It takes is one Microsoft commercial series for you to get back on the bandwagon.
I've already gotten burned big time. I mean, the mansion took a huge depreciation after the Masters and all that other good stuff where I was riding high. Could have sold at a profit, but at least I got a little bit of I got to enjoy the island again with a timeshare last week. So
if anyone wants any Mario Hazonia timeshares, I'll share it now. Yeah. So were you affected by all the Bryson commercials during the NCAA, Pete?
I actually didn't watch like much of the NCAA. Okay. It's really pathetic. Like there are these amazing games on. I got to watch the end of the Kentucky North Carolina game. It was awesome. But like I kind of realized like where my life was when like there's these amazing college basketball games going on, and because I really don't have incentive on them, I'm watching the Brooklyn Nets play the Phoenix Suns, and I was like, kind of interesting where my life is right now. But
for sure.
There's something very real about that. Like once you don't have incentive, there is a part of your pure fanhood that just gets destroyed, and it is the cost of doing business. And everybody that pretends it's not true is just like, no, like I don't believe anybody. Like it's just like, and the leverage it takes for so many people, like a $10 investment will probably get you to care more about like that Suns like Nets game. Like,
for sure.
Or whatever, but like it's different.
Having skin in the game, it's important. But yeah, I'm sure Adam Silver appreciates all of the DFSers because literally they're the only people that were watching Nets Suns.
Yep.
Most of the NCAA was us.
Probably the same thing about the Puerto Rico Open for that matter.
It's true. Yeah, for sure. So quickly, let's just touch on last week. I have a PGA ownership dashboard pulled up here. On the sites, it's a free tool. What we do is we bring in the ownership levels for these golfers on DraftKings in different buy-in levels: $3, $33, $333, and then the $1,500 Country Club, and just look at the differences between ownership. If a golfer is higher owned in a higher stakes tournament, then we consider those sharper plays. Guys at the top of the list this week: Luke List, Harold Varner, JJ Spawn, Danny Lee. Interestingly enough, I think a lot of guys that were popping at top of the models. Another guy that you just mentioned, Pete, I'm sort of curious your thoughts on him in ownership last week. Bryson, not exactly popping in the models, but he seemed to be somewhat of a sharp play. What were your thoughts on rostering him if it wasn't the commercials?
I mean, I thought Bryson was actually a pretty good play last week. I mean, he dominated as an amateur. I think was the only guy to win the national championship and the U.S. Amateur in the same year, and like since like Phil or Tiger, I don't remember the exact stat, but he was just crushing amateurs and college golfers. And you get a diluted field, you get him at a cheap price tag. Driving and long game is at a premium. There's a ton of rain, which will mitigate his disadvantage on the putting green. So I thought there was a lot of reasons to like Bryson last week. The line certainly was good for him as well. So, Yeah, if you also wanted to play a little narrative street with Bryson, he did so well at the Masters to start last year. This was his chance to get to the Masters, and unfortunately he fell short. But I thought he was a good play, not a great play, basically. But I did load up on him quite a bit. Maybe that's a bias thing, but yeah, I thought there are a couple reasons that he probably stood out more so than he'll ever stand out again because it was such a weak field, and he was still priced like he has been with these stronger fields.
Yeah, so I guess, Colin, is that the Bryson narrative is just that when it's a really weak field, like maybe take a golfer you think is just more talented than his price.
Yeah, but when are we not trying to take a golfer that's more talented than his price? That's the part that I kind of struggle with, right? That's just called value.
Course fit. Yeah. I guess.
My argument is he's 7K, let's say 7K in a field that's like a normal loaded field, and he's 7K in the Puerto Rico Open, and there's a bunch of guys that just aren't that great that are above him. Whereas in other tournaments, it's very clear he's, maybe even overpriced. So that's basically my argument for him.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems like your argument is more of like you're kind of banking more on pedigree, which is like, all right, he has like non-model stuff that's baked in. Like he's like a really good amateur. That's like what you're banking on mostly when you're talking about him. And like that's a weakness of player models. Like, and it's even topical this week because we have the top-rated amateur in the field, Patrick Cantlay, who I know like the models know basically nothing about. At some point, like that's like that's something the other 7K scrubs don't have. Like I can see that. I'm always going to be blind to it, but I don't know. I just like I always feel like we're trying to take best golfers relative to the price. So I don't know. The only ones on your list, Bryan, that kind of surprised me, that really left my head scratching, were the ownership on Spawn and Lee. Because they were not touted at all. I thought they'd both be under 12% in like the dog leg or the birdie or like any of the major GPPs. And they got up to 20. And I'm trying to figure out why. It's probably the biggest ownership miss that I had so far to date. Maybe it's just you chalk it up to the Puerto Rico Open as fluky because there's a bunch of no-name recognition players, so it's just going to be more volatile. But I don't know. That was the one that I was really kind of like, I don't know. Danny Lee is a name that people have heard of, so maybe that explains that one. But like, we've never talked about JJ Spawn.
I know why Spawn was owned.
What's that?
Massive to win line movement, like massive.
Mm.
That was the one that I think that's what drew people onto him.
But like, how do you judge that, Pete? Like, it's the Puerto Rico Open. Like, how much money was really on it?
Yeah, who knows? That's the thing that you never really know.
It doesn't have to matter, by the way, for it to drive ownership, right? It's just what people think is important.
Exactly.
Yeah, money bet is. So
I'm pretty confident that's the reason why he was heavily owned, though.
Interesting. All right, quickly before we move on to this week's Shell Houston Open, Pete, I'm just curious your thoughts. We had talked about this pre-pod, but wanted to get them on the pod. Your thoughts on match play?
Yeah, the match play was incredible. Great to watch. Dustin Johnson just completely obliterated everyone, as did Jon Rahm. And then Dustin did beat him in the final, but Rahm was even more dominant in the beginning part of that tournament, just crushing people. So, yeah, I think at this point it's pretty clear that Rahm is like a top 5 or 6, 7 golfer in the world-ish, somewhere in that range. And Dustin Johnson looks like clearly the best player in the world. Yeah, by a good margin. Every measurable thing right now, he's the number one golfer. So that's really what I took away from it. I'm hoping Spieth has a really bad week this week so I can get him at a cheaper or a lower ownership next week. Yeah, nothing else really stood out. Phil Mickelson putted out of his mind for a stretch there. Definitely played relatively well. So he'll be someone I'm curious about this week. But, yeah, the biggest takeaway is just, like, Jon Rahm to me, I don't know who I think is a better golfer right now, like Jon Rahm or Jason Day. That's kind of where I'm getting to, which is crazy to say. But Jason Day has been so poor to start the year, the injury concerns. Rahm is 22, hits the ball a freaking ton. And
some of these drives that we're seeing were just ridiculous.
Yeah, and even like you're hearing it from like Mickelson and these other guys on tour that like, yeah, this guy's the real deal. He's the, you know, an amazing young golfer and like he's going to win majors and all that stuff. So there's a big narrative around him. The data is actually backing him up as an incredible golfer. I think he's had like 4 straight top 5s, something like that. Just murdered through the match play. So yeah, Jon Rahm was the biggest takeaway for me in the whole thing.
Yeah, so that you brought up a point there that I'm curious, Colin, your thoughts on this. What could happen this week outside of like an injury that would change your mind drastically on a player for the Masters? So, like if Spieth just doesn't play well or anything like that, it might affect ownership, you know, positively or negatively. But like, what would it take for you to actually think differently about a player?
I mean, like, the top guys, like when they crash out and miss the cut like decently drastically, that's when I probably think it is the most difference.
But would you discount that more this week because of the situation?
Should discount less, I think.
Well, I don't know. See, that because that goes back to like, what do people use the Houston Open for? Like, if they use it as a tune-up, like maybe they're trying stuff and going unnecessarily high risk, high reward. It's not.
Yeah, that's my thought. Yeah, like a miscut's not that big of a deal the week before, as opposed to like when they're trying 4 weeks ago. You know.
Yeah.
The other thing too is like if these guys start, like let's say like Spieth or someone starts out. I don't even know if Spieth has like any additional like sponsorship or deal with Shell. I should probably look into that. But let's just say hypothetically Spieth has no other incentive outside of getting ready for the Masters, and you know, he goes out there and he shoots like +3 on the first 9. Like, it won't shock me if he just withdraws or just mails it in or whatever. And Spieth's not a great example. I guess the better example, given what we've seen so far this year, would be freaking Henrik Stenson, who has done a variety of things that are just beyond tilting. But, yeah, like I just think this week is kind of an outlier in some regards. I mean, Phil Mickelson was explicitly talking about how he would never hit driver on like a certain hole, and then he hit it last year getting ready for the Masters, puts it in the water. Like, there's just these golfers, especially the high-end ones who have, you know, clearly established themselves on the PGA Tour, are relatively financially set. They're way more focused on the Masters than they are this tournament. So,
I mean, but this is really interesting because we have like our recent like recent adjusted round and all of our recent stats, recent GIR, and it goes back the last 6 weeks, Colin. So just sample size, if a golfer doesn't necessarily care, they're sort of gearing up towards the Masters, 1 out of 6 weeks really skews the sample. So all of a sudden your models are going to be really off compared to like what maybe they should be if they just taken the week off. So, I mean, how do you reconcile that? Is it maybe just you keep up with this week and try to figure out where those outliers are and then adjust accordingly? Or, I mean, what do you, how are we dealing with that?
I think that's exactly it. This week and last week are kind of flopped in terms of like data-driven versus subjective adjustments type of stuff. This is not only pre-Masters, but post-match play, which isn't baking in any type of match play results. And so it's losing information from last week. So it is subjective stuff a go-go and just mentally noting where those types of like numbers showing up in data like might be a little bit off and just knowing how to adjust those accordingly. This is my second time around doing this, like pre-Masters. I'm still not in a great spot, I think, where I can know how to handle both match play and who is incentivized for what leading up to the Masters beyond like looking at the top people. So I don't know. My only solution to the more uncertainty you have is bet less, I guess. It's a leak. I'm sure I'd love to overcome it like down the road, but I don't know. This is just
And one other thing real quick. Anyone who hasn't qualified for the Masters has all the incentive in the world because if they win this tournament, they get to go to the Masters. So anyone else, you don't have to question there. Anyone who hasn't qualified for the Masters, they're gunning for it. And any of those guys playing anyways are gunning for it anyways because they need to win the tournament to make money. So
for sure. Yeah. So I guess it really doesn't affect anyone but like the major guys that like really think they have a shot to win the Masters and need to prep for it that way.
And I should clarify, some of these guys may be financially set from something else. These guys have incentive to win, to stay on the PGA Tour, whatever. Anyone who hasn't qualified for the Masters most likely has a massive incentive to do well.
Yeah, to get to the Masters for sure. Cool. All right. Well, let's dive into this week's tournament. I'll just give some brief information on it. It is the Shell Houston Open. It is pretty much always, at least the last couple of years, the tournament right before the Masters. So definitely it has those storylines, those narratives that you have to look out for. Pretty big purse. As you can tell by the name, it is in Houston, Texas. And definitely have some big names, as you can see in the field. We have Jim Herman, J.B. Holmes won the last 2 years, but the runners-up were some big names. Henrik Stenson, runner-up last year. The year before, Jordan Spieth was the runner-up and tuning up for the Masters here. So, Colin, I'll kick to you. Shell Houston Open. What sort of course are we looking at here?
We finally have a decent strength course fit after, I think, meandering the last couple times. It is bombers for sure. All your usual suspects, like the Finaus, the Horschels, the Lists. I think this is a swing for the fences type of place. Don't overthink it. I'll keep it simple this time. No meandering answer. Pete, tell me I'm wrong, but I'm confident in this one. It's a bombers course.
Bombers course for sure. I mean, J.B. Holmes won it last year. I think there's some stat about how he won it with hitting less than half the fairways, which like never happens. But yeah, it's a great spot to load up on the Bombers. A couple of places where there's water. I think last year, like Finau shot like 4 under the first round and like an 80 or something, just like bombing it in the water. So like there is some risk, but yeah, I mean it's clear it's a par 72. It's long. It's definitely a Bombers course.
Cool. Let's dive into it here then. So as I mentioned before, it definitely has some stars in here. So if we're just sort of looking at the top guys, Jordan Spieth is the highest price guy on DraftKings. He is at $12K. Pretty expensive, but he has the highest odds to win by quite a bit. Jon Rahm, who Pete mentioned earlier, coming off this great match play, 10-7, higher than Henrik Stenson, which is interesting. Henrik obviously struggling the last little bit here. 10-4, Ricky, Justin Rose, Adam Scott. Phil Mickelson is in this tournament as well. So definitely a lot of studs at the top. So before we talk about chalk like we normally do, just our thoughts on ownership and who we think is going to be the higher owned players. Let's just go through like motivation. Like Pete, which of these guys are you like more scared to roster than the other?
In terms of just guys because of the Masters?
Sure, yeah, or just poor play, or just like if you're sort of worried about this week. You talked about Stenson being worried just because of his poor recent play, and that with the Masters he might just folded in. But just these top guys, like which would you have the least confidence in this week?
Maybe it is Stenson. I don't know. He's just been such a bum, and I guess this is like. Relative to other spots, it's not an accuracy course, which is normally why I want to take Stenson. But listen, Stenson's still great. He should do really well here overall. I actually like Ricky this week, which is pretty rare. I know Colin will probably disagree with that. I don't really have a problem with any of these guys at the top. I mean, I like Spieth a lot. I love Jon Rahm. Talked about him before. I actually don't mind Fowler. So. Yeah, I mean, those guys are all great, and I think there's merit to Rose, Scott, Mickelson. I mean, I know Colin's probably going to like JB, even with the elevated price tag.
9-2 for JB. Ooh, that's up there.
That's steep.
I feel like I'm pretty consistent at this point. JB Holmes' sweet spot is at 7,500 and below.
Yeah, so you're shorting him because of this price?
Yeah, because like the reason he has his price tag is because he's a past winner, and so that like bumps up his price tag probably like $700. Like, I think he'll be fine, but, like, there's cheaper guys than him that I prefer for sure. And, like, yeah, there is great history here. He does the fit. But, like, 9,200 is just not J.B. Holmes' price. It's 7,500.
Right. And I should clarify, JB won 2 years ago. I screwed that up. I forgot about Jim Herman winning in, all the historic fashion last year. And I think Stenson finished runner-up last year, too. I was thinking about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Spieth's runner-up the year before. So Colin, what's your take on these top guys? Are you sort of scared away from Stenson, or
I'm kind of in Pete's boat. Like, if he had to pick a guy who I'm scared of, it's Stenson, just because like he was so obviously tilting the last time he was out that's got to be scary. And like some plays that he was just perfectly set up for success, but like. all of the high price guys, like there's no obvious like, oh, that guy shouldn't be 10K. I don't think that's within the realm of possibility.
No Ricky Fowler hate, bro?
No, not even like him as much. Like I like him better than Stenson.
He's playing well, dude.
Yeah.
Fowler is legit playing well right now.
Yeah, I think that he's finally getting the distance back up, and that shows with the pop and course fit this week around. I guess if I have any concern, it's be like Jordan Spieth is the only one of the top guys with like what passes for bad course history because he missed the cut in 14. But like, and other than that, like I don't know. Pete, the other angle I forgot you about. So this qualifies as part of the Texas swing of the tour, right? Spieth is a Texas guy. I swear there's these weird anecdotes about like people like Ryan Palmer doing better in Texas courses when they're in Texas or something like that. Is there do you think Texas courses are a thing? And B, if they are, that Texas people play better in Texas courses?
Oh man. I mean, we talked a little bit about this pre-pod, and I asked you the question, and I'm really not sure, to be honest. Some of these guys have played really well. I definitely think there is course similarity stuff that makes sense, and guys can be more comfortable at their home course or playing where they grew up. I definitely buy that in general. So I do think it is, but I think it's a case by case basis, and there has to be a lot of stuff behind it that will give me conviction, because there can be noise in this stuff, and yeah.
No, I agree with that. All right.
There's also the Australians play well in Texas, and we just saw Leishman win. Leishman didn't win in Texas though. I don't think, did he?
I forget.
Tournament? I'm blending all these tournaments together. Yeah, I'm blending all these tournaments together.
I'll keep it symbol free for this one then. Spieth in Texas, yay or nay, or am I just grasping?
I think maybe a 0.01% bump or something like that.
Yeah. So cool.
Maybe 0.1. There you go.
Oh man, we're getting up to 1 decimal point.
I like him at the Austin Country Club. I mean, he apparently he's played there a decent bit, even though he just didn't play well in the match play, but. He knows the course. There's a couple spots where I like it. In Dallas, obviously, it's great. But this is in Houston. I don't know.
Who was that golfer a couple weeks ago who was not any good, but he said he had played at the course 1,000 times? Do you remember talking about that guy?
Yeah.
And he ended up playing well. He made the cut. Yeah.
Same thing with the Puerto Rico Open. That guy who's a scrub got up to the top. I can't remember who it was, but he's from there, and he had a huge following.
I know. Yeah.
I'm going to look it up. And yeah, Leishman won the Arnold Palmer, which is in Florida. So here I am just spewing all this terrible information. But yeah.
We're all aboard.
Narratives are hard. That's why I don't do them.
We're all aboard.
They are hard. I'm not on my narrative game. I'll have more narratives, and I'll be on it for the Masters. I got to find this guy. I started with a C that played so well last week at the Puerto Rico Open. But I think that's a thing. If a guy for sure is grown up on that course and played it a ton, that has to mean something. You learn how all the putts break, and just there has to be something. Yeah, it was Rafael Campos, I believe.
That was it. Yeah,
finished tied for 10th. I mean, the guy's a scrub. Not a scrub. I shouldn't say that. I don't want to but he's clearly not. He's not in that caliber of golfer, right?
Yeah.
Fair. All right, let's talk about some chalk here, because there are some interesting guys. We definitely have the studs at the top here. We talked about Ron coming off this great match play, looking really good, and how he's performed in these tournaments over the last couple months here. Then we have some guys that just seem pretty cheap relative to again their talent level and just how they fit the course. Finau 7-1 is really standing out. Phil has I would say pretty much elite course history of the last decade. Pretty much he's gotten 15th place or better. So Colin, I'll start with you. Who do you think are going to be the chalky guys in the slate? And so what are your thoughts on them and sort of where their ownership's going to be? Do you like that or not?
I have a tougher time picking out the clear chalk, because they're kind of all I don't see as of now. Can't reliably say who's going to crack 20, because everybody here is popular for their own reasons. John Rahm's always high owned. Maybe Spieth will be below 20% just because he's the most expensive. concerns and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But Ricky and Justin are always popular, even Phil to a certain degree. Like, people can't seem to get off Stenson. Maybe those guys. I don't know. This is tougher to figure out who do I think is going to be like pure chalk this time around. I'm sure that'll clarify as the week goes on and like with the recommendations start getting out. But like the only one that I would like I think is like guaranteed to be over 20% is probably Rom.
Yeah.
Here's the chalk. I'll tell you guys right now. 3 chalkiest guys. My prediction: Rom, Mickelson, and Finau. I think they're going to be.
Yeah. Those 3 guys. Yeah, just nailed it.
Yeah, I think Finau is just like stands out with his price.
Yeah.
Another guy who seems way too cheap is Patrick Reed, but it's kind of a weird spot for him. I'm not like in love with Patrick Reed. Also not like super long, but 7,700 for Patrick Reed. I mean, he's cheaper than guys like Lucas Glover now. He's cheaper than Nick Watney, Lee Westwood, Charlie Hoffman. Like Patrick Reed was like the star of the Ryder Cup. I mean, I'm surprised. He's even cheaper than Harold Varner. Like, come on. Like, so that's the one guy who stands out to me just in terms of price. Like, if you take the course and everything out of it and you just look at all the golfers relative to their price and you throw them in a random place, like Reed stands out as like the cheap guy. But
I guess like I don't mind Reed's cheap price there. I think it's warranted because like, yes, like this is kind of one of those classic cases of, again, the pedigree is way stronger than the recent form, right? Just look at his results since Phoenix in like beginning of February. 68, 23, 59, 61, 38. Like not even like there's.
Yeah, but that guy's not missing cuts. Look at his game log. He's never missing cuts.
But okay, so there's a perfectly good like label for those type of people. It's called Ches Reavie or Michael Kim, where like they're cut makers, but they don't have like any like monstrous upside. If you just look at results, that is Reed's profile right now. I don't think that's the true Patrick Reed because it's like, no, he's still like up there, but like his recent form is off. And like, it's a thing in golf. He does deserve to be dinged. Like what would he have to do to deserve like that price tag? Like miscuts?
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. It is more of a pedigree thing than like what his recent form is in the course fit. I'll tell you one other guy who could be more chalky than what we currently have in the player models, depending on how things go, is Ryan Palmer. Obviously had this awful stretch of golf, but at 6,900, bomber, like I think there's a lot of reasons why Ryan Palmer might be touted a lot this week, and I certainly don't mind him.
Hey, do you know where Palmer's from, where he went to college?
He's from Texas, right?
Texas,
yeah. There's a Texas thing there for sure.
There's a Texas thing for him. I mean, he doesn't have like an insane course history or anything, but
I do think a couple years ago,
yeah, he's going to get touted. So I think that's someone that could climb the rankings here. But yeah, it should be a pretty evenly distributed, in terms of the chalk. I'm curious, Colin, if there's some guys that you like for low ownership, because I got one guy in particular that I think could be really, really interesting as a pivot from chalk.
Low ownership. So I feel like I've gone to this well before, and it's not very original, but I think Stewart Cink is still going to be sub 5%. And I've been on this wagon before, and it's never yielded any great fruit. But like ever since, like I swear, even since I've been like going that route, just look at his results, like even in the last like 6 weeks or so.
Yeah, he's guaranteed a 27th or 28th place.
Yeah, finish. Like ever since like, the Genesis, like the last 4 weeks, they've all been like top 30 finishes. So it's that like it's almost like that weird spot. He's almost like the 2000s Philadelphia Eagles of like golfers right now, where he's good enough to like make the Final Four or like the championship game, but like never enough to go all the way over top. What do you do with that in GPPs? I don't know, but like that's why he's popping so hard. And like I can't believe that like it doesn't take a whole lot to get him into the top echelon. So Cink is my favorite low ownership guy. Outside of that, like the other one I like, maybe depressed by like bad like course history, but great course fit and a decently high price tag is Hudson Swafford. I think he's a lock to be below 5%. I think he's a great pivot from chalk. So
I thought you were going to go Ches Reavie.
Not quite there. I mean, like RIP, I got a pour for you, something like that. I didn't get Pete's guy, I don't think. Like, all right, like who did I miss?
Well, I got the strongest narrative you could ever imagine here. This might be my greatest narrative that I've ever had.
I'm excited.
Yeah. Oh wow, you're building this up a little here.
Oh, and it is Well deserved. And he's going nuts here. He's got his Twitter. I've gone back and forth between his Twitter being decent to annoying, or first I thought it was hilarious, then decent and annoying. Now I'm back on the train here with Grayson Murray. Grayson Murray, one of the longest guys on tour.
Oh yeah.
Longest guys on tour.
Honest, yes.
And he tweeted at Lindsay Palos saying, he said, will you be my caddy for the Masters at the par 3 contest? And if you don't know her, you can definitely go look it up online or whatever. But
she's not bad looking.
Yeah, exactly. And she not only responded, but she said yes. So I mean, if you're looking for incentive, I mean,
and he's a guy that has to win to get in. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So he's got every incentive in the world.
I don't know what I was expecting with greatest narrative ever, but like that arguably delivers. Only because like the first time I wrote that, like when this wave happened in NBA, when Joel Embiid was trying to get a date with Rihanna by making the All-Star game, that was the most entertained I've been by Sixers basketball in like maybe 7 years. And like I want to believe, but like, oh man, the fact that I haven't heard of his Masters caddy just makes me feel old, and like now I'm one of those.
Just do a little Twitter search right now, buddy.
Yeah.
Go on Twitter. Look her up.
While we're all right, while this pod is happening, I'm just gonna have some questionable search history. But
yeah. Or you can go to Grayson Murray's Twitter, and it's there. So
yeah, this popped up on my Twitter feed a couple of days ago, and Pete, I'm all in on the storyline.
Yeah, I think it's strong. I mean, I think it's a very strong narrative here for Grayson.
You got to shoot your shot, you know.
And his funny tweets, like he's putting a putt, and like there's no one there, and he said the crowds went crazy when I made this. Just, like, he's got some pretty funny stuff there. And the only thing that the guy is missing a ton of cuts. The guy might not be that great of a golfer, but he hits the ball a ton. So he's probably, I mean, like in terms of raw distance, like outside of maybe John Rahm, like he's got some serious freaking power. In terms of long-term driving distance, he's 4.7 yards ahead of the next closest guy behind him. So he's averaging 316 out the tee. He is hitting it a little shorter so far in his recent form. Not sure exactly what that is, but he is a straight bomber just in general. So I do think there's maybe a little bit of merit, but maybe he won't be as low owned as I think, because the story will get out. But I think he's interesting.
And he is a local guy to me, so I'm definitely on that train. Yeah, for sure.
You guys are all compromised. Like I can't believe. I swear I got dumber listening to this. All right, now I'm good. I have to be contrarian of this. Somebody has to stop this madness.
Yeah, I'm all in.
Back to my numbers cave.
I'm all in. That is funny. Colin, who do you think of sort of like the top guys, like 8K or like 8.5 or above? Who do you think will be like the lowest owned?
Lowest owned? Like, I mean, I'm honestly, or 8.5 or above, who's the lowest owned?
Yeah, so we can go like Howell and above, yeah.
Like, I think Daniel Berger is still probably there, and like, I'm probably going to ride that train for a while.
Like he has probably pretty decent course fit, right?
Yeah, I mean, his distance is a little bit off now. So he's actually like as an average course fit, not as much as like your Finaus or whatever. But like the history is there for sure. And there's still like, I don't know, he's someone that like whenever he gets into this like high 8 range, he always tends to be a little bit lower owned. And I can't seem to get away with him just because like I'm just so looking to find a low ownership type of guy. Yeah. I wonder what people are going to do with Charles Howell at 8,500. Normally his go-to is, like when he's sub 7K or maybe like 7,500. Like he's been 9K in own before, but not in this strong of a field. So he is the greatest question mark for could he get under for sure. I don't know. I want to see how the rest of the week unfolds before I think who the good pivots are.
Yeah, Pete, what are your thoughts on some of these guys that did well last week? Like Luke Lewis was the guy you were heavy on. 7-3 this week obviously sets up with this course being a bomber well, but people like see like, oh yeah, he did well last week, but obviously a very different field. How do you sort of just measure how to judge his price last week versus this week and whether you actually want to use him again?
Yeah, I mean, I think List is in play. I like him. He's definitely got the distance here. I'm bullish on him just in general. So definitely not the same, field strength, but I think he's a decent play. I'm curious to see his ownership, but I definitely think it's interesting.
Cool. Colin, you had mentioned it, and then I don't want to keep us too long here, just because we're gonna have a lot of content coming up next week for the Masters. So we'll definitely want to tease that. Colin, you mentioned Cantlay as as a guy that you wanted to talk about earlier. What are your thoughts on him? And Pete, if you have any thoughts as well.
No, you got it all wrong. I don't want to talk about him.
Oh, you don't want to talk.
Tournaments so far. I mean, he's my paralysis spot. Where we haven't had the amateur coming strong out of the gate conversation this year. I guess it seems to be like a tradition unlike any other, similar to the Masters. He's played 2 PGA tournaments so far. He's won the amateur. And he's out here at 8,700 at his in a relatively low own. I don't know what to do with him. I don't know anything about him. I have to fade him just because there's not enough sample size. Pete, am I missing out on anything? How does he compare to? I mean, I know he's no Bryson, but
he's an older guy. He's 25.
Okay.
Yeah.
I need to do a little more research.
More than I know now. I don't know. What else do we know about him?
I mean, I need to do more research. That's really the reality here. I don't know that much at this point.
Yeah.
Other than, I've heard good things, but I don't know that much about him.
Yeah, for sure, me either. But I thought it was just interesting that 8.6 price tag. At least, Colin, for me, that at least opened my eyes to that. That's interesting that he's priced up at 8.6 for some reason. I would assume maybe it's just because of recent play or
Grayson Murray, the same thing happened to him in November. Everyone's like, "Who the hell is this guy?" And because he was up there in the 8s for sure.
Everyone's saying he must be really freaking good. I heard someone else earlier just looking at some of the markets and all that stuff. I mean, clearly the kid is good, but he's 25. I mean, that's kind of the thing that's a little bizarre to me. But I watched a little bit of the Valspar, I believe, with him. So I don't know. It seemed really good. Obviously did well there, but 8,600. That seems pretty expensive to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely pricey here. Okay, let's. I say any other thoughts here? We'll definitely pick winners. We're gonna hold props for this week since we're going a little long here, and we're going to have lots of props for the Masters. So don't worry, we're gonna be back with a vengeance next week. But
we just have a separate props podcast. We're just going to put it all into our own hour, and then just
that's what we should do.
I think we could fill an entire podcast with props.
Yeah, and just to tease that real quick, we are going to have our regular podcast early next week, and then we're also going to have a live show with us three and Sean, another FantasyLabs guy who has some hot takes ready for Pete and Colin. So that'll be good. So we'll at least have those two things. We'll obviously have a ton of content written on the site as well. So we have lots of stuff coming for the match. It's going to be great. But any last thoughts on Shell Houston? You guys want to pick winners?
Let's pick winners.
Well, time for winners.
Perfect. All right. So let's go any guy, and then we will go under 8K.
All right. I'll go. I haven't gone third in a while, and I don't want to this time, but I haven't gone in a while, so I'll go.
You go first, Bryan.
Okay. I'll go with Rom. Sure.
All right, I'll take Spieth. Sure.
Yeah, that's just correct across the board. Oh God.
You think Rom's a favorite over Spieth straight up?
Yes. I do.
I would if I was putting it there.
Yeah. I would take Rom over Spieth.
I know what his odds are in Vegas, and I know that Spieth is the favorite, but personally, I would.
God, I can't believe I'm going to do this. I'm going to take Ricky. Oh,
I like it. I think that's right.
Well, that makes one of us. All right. 8K or less right now?
Yeah. Oh, there's a very obvious choice here.
I don't know that they're maybe you guys are seeing that I'm not. I'm going to go Rafa.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll at least get one of the two guys I had here. Pete. Or is it me? No, it's you.
Is it? Yeah, 8K or less?
Under 8K, Pete.
Under 8K, so I can't take Hudson Swafford. We didn't talk about, but I do like. I'll go Finau.
Yeah, I thought Finau was the obvious guy. Colin, you're not on that.
It's fine. Like I think it's high risk, high reward. Sure, why not? Like I have Finau and Rafa close.
Yeah. I am going to, even though he's been very, very bad lately, I do like the Rafa call a lot. I guess I'll go Patrick Reed if he's going to be under 8K.
Good pick. Yeah.
Yeah. Probably not a good pick. I mean, he's not playing very.
It's fine. Like you're with
It's not good golf. Yeah.
No.
But okay. Well, we will end it there. Thank you guys for listening. As always, again, please definitely be looking out for all of our Masters content. We're going to have some stuff coming out later this week in preparation for the Masters, and then we are going to hit it heavy next week. So we'll definitely communicate all that. But good luck this week for the Shell Open, and we will talk to you guys soon.